Before the sun rises, while the world still sleeps, a rare and sacred time exists, one that holds the power to shape your entire destiny. In these early hours, the greatest minds in history found their clarity, built their strength, and created their legacies. What you're about to experience is more than a story. It is a philosophy, a way of life that has transformed the lives of leaders, artists, and world builders across generations. Within these pages, you'll journey with an entrepreneur, an artist, and an eccentric mentor as they uncover the secrets of sustained success, deep inner peace, and personal mastery. This is an invitation to take control of your days, awaken your potential, and build a life that reflects the hero you were meant to be. Welcome to a new way of living. Chapter 1: The Dangerous Deed. It was the kind of cold morning that made your breath visible and your thoughts louder than usual. I remember stepping into the dimly lit seminar hall, a cavernous space buzzing with the energy of desperate ambition. The crowd was the usual mix: young entrepreneurs hungry for shortcuts to success, overworked professionals hunting for clarity, burned out creatives silently praying for a breakthrough. Some looked like they had it all together. Most were just pretending. Among the crowd sat two people who would soon become central to a story far bigger than they imagined. She was there, the entrepreneur, mid-30s, impeccably dressed, a designer bag on her lap, and a phone she couldn't stop checking even though the event hadn't started yet. Her posture was perfect, her hair flawless, but her eyes gave everything away. They were tired in a way caffeine couldn't fix. She had the look of someone who had achieved what others only dream of: money, recognition, power, but was quietly suffocating under it all. It wasn't burnout, it was something deeper, a hollowness success had never filled. A few seats away sat a man who couldn't have been more different, or so it seemed. The artist, lean, wiry, dressed in layers that didn't quite match, a knit cap pulled low, paint stains still lingering on his jeans. His notebook was open in his lap, yeah, and his fingers moved across the pages with erratic intensity. He looked like someone who had once burned bright and was now just trying to stay lit. His eyes carried a different kind of exhaustion, creative frustration, the slow agony of watching your passion morph into pressure, your calling into a job. They didn't know each other. Yet, the event was supposed to be the kind of seminar you go to when you're running out of answers. A motivational speaker, some buzzwords, a few aha moments, maybe a free workbook. Nothing life-altering, nothing dangerous. But fate doesn't care about your expectations. As the lights dimmed, the crowd shifted, and a sense of anticipation filled the air. People expected the main speaker to walk out, some best-selling author or guru in a sharp suit. Instead, a man walked on stage who looked like he'd wandered in off the street. He was barefoot. His clothes were worn, torn at the seams, as if they'd lived 100 lives. His hair was wild, his beard long, and his presence both unsettling and magnetic. The crowd murmured. Some laughed nervously. A few reached for their phones, thinking this was some kind of joke or performance art. But when he began to speak, everything changed. His voice wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic, but it was real. Stripped of pretense, soaked in experience. He didn't start with a story of triumph or a resume of accomplishments. He didn't even introduce himself. He simply started talking about pain, about purpose, about the silent suffering that successful people carry in the dark corners of their lives. He spoke of his own descent from glory. Once a titan in the business world, envied and celebrated, he had walked away from it all, voluntarily. Not because he failed, but because he succeeded, and realized it wasn't enough. The wealth, the status, the applause, it had become a golden prison. His words weren't polished, but they were precise. They struck nerves that no motivational talk ever had. He looked around the room and, without naming anyone, described the very people he was addressing. The entrepreneur stiffened when he described someone who had climbed the ladder of success only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. The artist looked up when he spoke of a soul born to create, now shackled by fear, by deadlines, by the pressure to be understood rather than to be true. It was as if this stranger saw through them, and then he offered something no one saw coming. Not advice, not a product, not a program, a challenge. He spoke of a method, a ritual, really, that had transformed his life after he lost everything. A way to take back control from chaos, a way to rise above mediocrity, not through hustle, but through discipline. a path not to comfort, but to greatness. It began with a decision to start each day at 5 a.m., not just waking up early, but doing it with purpose, with ritual, with intention. He called it the 5 a.m. Club, a secret society of sorts, open to anyone willing to take their life seriously enough to get uncomfortable. He explained how those quiet early hours held magic the rest of the day couldn't match. The silence, the solitude, the stillness, the power to build, reflect, and grow while the world still slept. The crowd was confused. Some rolled their eyes, others smirked, but not the entrepreneur, and not the artist. They were listening now, not just with their ears, but with their scars. He turned to them directly now and extended an invitation, not to a program, not to a course, but to an experience, a journey, one that would begin the next morning, at 5 a.m., sharp, at a secret location. He didn't beg them, he didn't sell it, he simply laid it out. And then he walked off stage. No applause, no outro music, just silence. People murmured, laughed it off, called it strange, weird, unprofessional, but the entrepreneur sat still. Her phone lay untouched in her lap. She wasn't thinking about her meetings, her brand, or her next deal. She was thinking about how numb she'd become, how little joy her so called success brought her, how long it had been since she woke up excited about her life. The artist closed his notebook. He wasn't sketching anymore. He was remembering who he was before the world told him how to be, before deadlines, before the critics, before fear. And somehow, both of them knew. They had to say yes. It wasn't a logical decision. It wasn't planned. But sometimes your soul speaks louder than your mind, and when it does, you listen. That was the moment everything changed. Not when the barefoot stranger spoke, not when he told them about the 5 a.m. club, but when they decided to follow. To step away from everything familiar, to challenge the very patterns that had built their success but stolen their peace, to trust a man who looked like he had nothing, but who somehow carried a presence of someone who had everything. They met him after the seminar. He was waiting by the exit, smiling, calm, like he already knew what they would decide. They didn't ask questions, they didn't need answers, they just nodded. He handed them a card, a location, a time, no name, no contact. Be there, he said, if you're ready to live the rest of your life differently than the way you've been living it. That night, neither of them slept much, not out of fear, but because something had shifted. Something had cracked open, a glimpse of who they were meant to become. They didn't know it yet, but they were about to be tested, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. They would be stretched, broken, and rebuilt. Not by the stranger, but by the rituals he would share. The philosophy he would unfold, the truth he would reveal. But first, they had to show up. At 5 a.m., that's where it all would begin. That's where they would begin again. And so it started, not with a loud bang, but with a quiet, dangerous deed, a decision to change, a choice to trust, and the first step into a life where greatness is not given, but earned before the sun even rises. Chapter 2, A Daily Philosophy on Becoming Legendary. The next morning arrived with the kind of silence only the early hours can offer. The city was still asleep, blanketed in shadows and calm. Streetlights flickered like fading stars, and the roads were empty. No horns, no chatter, no noise. Just a quiet so pure it almost felt sacred. At precisely 5 a.m., the entrepreneur and the artist arrived at the location scribbled on the card. It was a private beach, hidden from the chaos of the city, kissed by waves and guarded by ancient trees that had seen more sunrises than any human ever would. The sand was cold beneath their feet, the air fresh and sharp, the kind that wakes you up more than any espresso shot ever could. And there he was, the strange, barefoot man from the seminar, this time dressed in surfer shorts and a hoodie that looked like it had been patched a dozen times. Yet again, he stood like someone completely at home, grounded, present, alive in a way most people never experience. His name, they would soon learn, was Mr. Riley, but to the few who knew him well, he was simply the Spellbinder's student. He welcomed them with a grin that made him look both ancient and childlike at once. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said, sipping from a coconut shell. "We weren't sure either," the entrepreneur replied. The artist just nodded, still unsure if this was some elaborate prank or the beginning of something real. Riley motioned for them to sit on two wooden stools he'd carved himself from fallen trees. No phones, no distractions, just the rhythm of waves and the distant cry of birds waking up. Today, he said, you begin remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. They didn't fully understand what he meant, but they listened. He sat on the sand, cross-legged, staring into the horizon. Everyone wants to be legendary, he began, but almost no one is willing to do what legends do. We live in a time where people chase likes instead of legacy, where being busy is confused with being valuable, where we glorify hustle but ignore healing, where people look rich on the outside but are bankrupt within. He paused, letting the words sink in. Being legendary has nothing to do with fame. It has everything to do with how true you are to yourself, how fully you show up, how courageously you live. The entrepreneur shifted uncomfortably. She had built a company from nothing, employed hundreds. Her name was known in boardrooms and magazines, but somehow this man's words made all of it feel hollow. Greatness, he continued, isn't something rare, it's just rarely practiced. Most people spend their lives reacting to emails, to opinions, to problems. They become slaves to urgency and miss the art of intentionality. He reached into a small leather bag and pulled out a journal. It was old, worn, with pages covered in ink and sand. He opened it carefully and showed them a sketch, what looked like a triangle with 3 words written on each corner: mindset, heart set, health set, soul set. This, he said, tapping the sketch, is your daily philosophy, your blueprint, your system for becoming legendary. You master this, you master yourself. The artist raised an eyebrow. Heart set, soul set? Sounds poetic. Riley chuckled. It's more than poetry. It's science. It's ancient wisdom dressed in modern language. He began explaining. Mindset, he said, was your psychology, your thoughts, beliefs, and internal dialogue. Most people try to change their lives without changing the way they think. That's why they fail. Your behavior reflects your beliefs. If you believe you're not good enough, you'll never rise. Change your beliefs and your actions follow. And we're getting heart set was your emotional life. You can have the best strategy in the world, but if your heart is heavy, filled with anger, sadness, resentment, you'll sabotage yourself. Legends clean out emotional toxicity daily. They forgive fast, they cry when they need to, they feel deeply and move. Health set was your physical body. Energy is the foundation of achievement. Without vitality, you can't think clearly, feel deeply, or act courageously. Exercise, nutrition, sleep. It's not just about fitness, it's about firepower. And finally, soul set, the most neglected of all. This is your spirit, your connection to meaning, to the infinite, to something larger than yourself. When your soul is neglected, even success feels empty. When your soul is alive, even small acts feel divine. The entrepreneur leaned in now. She had spent years optimizing her productivity, her routines, her schedules, but she had never once thought of her heart set or soul set. Riley saw the shift. Each morning, he said, you'll rise before the sun, and for the first hour of your day, you'll work on these 4 empires: mindset, heart set, health set, soul set. This is what separates the average from the iconic, the distracted from the disciplined, the ordinary from the extraordinary. He stood up and drew a line in the sand with a stick. Then he wrote out the numbers: 20, 20, 20. This is the structure of your first hour, he said. The 20-20-20 formula, the victory hour. It's sacred. The first 20 minutes, intense movement, sweat, hard, get your heart rate up. Exercise floods your brain with dopamine and serotonin. It reduces cortisol, boosts focus, and resets your body. The second 20 minutes, reflection. Journal, meditate, pray, plan, think, be with yourself. The world spends so much time broadcasting, they forget to listen to their own voice. The third 20 minutes, growth. Read, study, learn, nourish your mind. One idea at the right moment can transform your entire life. He paused again and looked them both in the eye. This single hour, practiced with discipline every morning, will do more to transform your life than any app, any seminar, or any guru. It's not glamorous, it's not easy, but it works. The artist looked down at his hands. They were stained with ink and paint, but they hadn't created anything real in months. Something in him stirred. The entrepreneur looked out toward the rising sun. She hadn't sat still in silence like this since she was a teenager. Something inside her softened. You don't need more time, Riley said quietly. You need fewer distractions. You don't need more motivation. You need better habits. And you don't need to change your whole life overnight. Just win your morning, and your morning will win your day. The tide crept in slowly, touching their feet like a quiet reminder that time waits for no one. He handed each of them a small, handcrafted journal and a pen. Tomorrow, he said, we go deeper. But today, begin with this. Honor your mornings. Protect the first hour of your day like it's sacred, because it is. He turned and walked toward a small hut by the trees, leaving them alone with their thoughts, their new tools, and a rising sun that felt less like a backdrop and more like a beginning. The entrepreneur opened her journal and wrote, "Maybe this is what I've been missing. Not more productivity, more presence." The artist drew a sunrise. Underneath, he scribbled, "For the first time in years, I feel like I might come alive again." Neither of them fully understood the journey they had just begun, but something in their bones knew. They had taken the first real step, not toward more, but toward legendary. Chapter 3: An Unexpected Encounter with a Surprising Stranger. The sun had barely risen, painting soft streaks of gold across the water, when the entrepreneur and the artist arrived once again at the private beach. They had followed the 5 a.m. routine for only a day, yet something already felt different. Not drastically, but subtly, like their bodies and minds were beginning to wake up from years of autopilot. The barefoot billionaire was already there, perched on a rock, staring out at the endless horizon, sipping what looked like green tea from a handmade cup. His hoodie was off this time, revealing a simple white shirt and a calmness that made him seem untouchable by the chaos of the world. "Good," he said without turning. "You're on time. Most people want transformation, but they're late to their own lives." He turned to face them, smiling warmly. "Today, I'm taking you somewhere," he said, standing up and brushing the sand from his clothes. "You're ready for your first real experience." The artist looked skeptical. The entrepreneur raised an eyebrow. "Where?" she asked. "You'll see," he said, already walking. They followed him without question. That's the strange thing about this man. Despite his eccentricity, his tattered clothes, and unpredictable behavior, there was something deeply grounding about him. Like he knew exactly what he was doing, and you couldn't help but trust him. A sleek black SUV was waiting just beyond the trees. Driven by a quiet, stone-faced chauffeur, it looked completely out of place compared to the billionaire's ragged appearance. As the car moved through winding coastal roads, he finally began to speak. "You know," he said, looking at the two of them, "I wasn't always like this. I used to live in boardrooms. Suits, stocks, meetings. I had everything the world tells you is success. Jet setting, front covers, private chefs, but inside I was dying." Neither of them spoke. They were both listening more deeply now. My turning point didn't come through planning. It came through pain. One day I met someone who changed everything. He paused, letting that thought hang in the air like the scent of salt and sea. They arrived at a quiet villa on a cliff, surrounded by olive trees and silence, the kind of place where thoughts get louder and masks fall off. There, waiting at the entrance, stood an older man, gracefully dressed, slim, skin like leather, aged by wind and wisdom. His presence was commanding, not forceful, but undeniable. "This," the billionaire said, "is the spellbinder." The entrepreneur and artist stared. This was the man he'd spoken of, the legendary speaker who had inspired him years ago, whose words had shaken him from his comfort and set him on this radical path. The spellbinder smiled. "Welcome. You're here because something inside you is still alive, even if buried. My job is to help you find it again." He led them through a garden path into a quiet room overlooking the sea. Simple chairs, a wooden table, no distractions. And then he spoke, softly, deliberately. "Most people die at 20 and are buried at 80, he began. They trade their genius for security, their authenticity for approval, their calling for comfort, and then they wonder why they feel numb." He turned to the entrepreneur. "You've built a life everyone envies, but do you enjoy it?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her silence was her confession. Then to the artist. "You were born to create, but you've been creating for applause, not for truth, and now you've lost your voice." The artist flinched, as if hit directly in the chest. "You see," the spellbinder continued, "greatness doesn't come from what you do. It comes from who you are becoming. It's a practice, a daily devotion. You don't stumble into legendary. You build it." The billionaire chimed in, picking up the thread. "Most people wait for clarity before they move. But the truth is, clarity comes from movement, from doing, from rising early, reflecting deeply, learning constantly, creating boldly. He pointed to a painting on the wall, an abstract swirl of colors. Legendary lives aren't clean. They're messy, unpredictable, but they're real. And real is rare these days. Then the spellbinder gave them a small, leather-bound book, handwritten pages filled with quotes, lessons, and exercises. This, he said, is the manifesto of the 5 a.m. Club. You're not here to memorize it, you're here to live it. He pointed to a page that read, Own your morning, elevate your life. They sat for hours that morning, listening, writing, thinking, not about profits, promotions, or followers, but about values, fears, and who they truly wanted to become. Before they left, the spellbinder placed his hand on their shoulders. Most people just exist, but you, if you keep showing up at 5 a.m., if you commit to these small wins daily, you will evolve. Slowly, quietly, powerfully, until one day you wake up and realize you've become legendary, not because you chased success, but because you became yourself. They left that villa changed, not transformed completely, but cracked open. In the car ride back, neither spoke. The entrepreneur stared out the window, thinking of how long she had worn the armor of being strong, successful, and in control, only to realize how much of herself she had buried. The artist clutched the manifesto, flipping through its pages like it was a lost map to a place he hadn't seen in years, his true self. And the billionaire? He just smiled quietly. He'd seen this look before, the look of people standing on the edge of their old life, about to leap into something greater. An unexpected encounter, a surprising stranger, but maybe, just maybe, it was exactly what they needed. Chapter 4. Letting Go of Mediocrity and All That's Ordinary. The days following their visit to the Spellbinder's villa were quiet but electric with possibility. The entrepreneur and the artist found themselves caught between the pull of their old lives, comfortable, predictable, suffocating, and the faint whisper of something larger calling them forward. It was like standing on a ledge, the wind strong behind them, daring them to jump into an unknown abyss that promised freedom but offered no guarantees. That morning, the billionaire met them once again on the beach. His face was calm, but his eyes held the kind of fire that only comes from a man who has wrestled with his own limits and emerged victorious. Today, he said, we talk about mediocrity, about ordinary, about the slow death that comes disguised as safety. The entrepreneur bristled. Mediocrity? She had built a successful company. People admired her. She wasn't mediocre. She was exceptional. Or so she thought. The artist remained quiet, yet inside, a familiar ache stirred. Mediocrity wasn't just a word to him, it was a cage he had built himself. One small compromise at a time ignored passion, one fear unspoken. The billionaire paced slowly along the shore, his voice steady. Mediocrity is a trap, he began. Not because it's loud or flashy, but because it's silent. It whispers to you every day, this is enough. You're safe here. Don't push. And so you settle. You become comfortable with being comfortable. He stopped and looked at them. Most people's biggest enemy isn't failure. It's not rejection or loss. It's settling for less than they're capable of. It's the slow, poisonous acceptance of just fine. The entrepreneur finally spoke. But how do you even recognize mediocrity when you're in it? When success feels like a weight, not a reward. He smiled knowingly. Mediocrity feels like safety, but it's really fear wearing a mask. Fear of the unknown, fear of judgment, fear of failure. It shows up as busyness without progress, as stress without growth, as noise without meaning. The artist added quietly, I think I've been afraid to be more, to risk what I have, even if it's not enough. That's it exactly, the billionaire said. Fear makes you hold on to what's familiar, even if it's killing you softly. But the truth is, you cannot soar while clutching your chains. He knelt down, scooping up a handful of sand and letting it slip through his fingers. Look at this sand, he said. Each grain is tiny, seemingly insignificant, but together they make a vast beach. And yet, if you try to hold onto the sand tightly, it slips away. You have to open your hand, you have to let go. The entrepreneur's eyes welled up, not with weakness, but with recognition. Letting go, she whispered, sounds terrifying. Because it is, he replied, but necessary. To live a legendary life, you must be willing to leave behind the ordinary, the comfortable patterns, the toxic relationships, the half-hearted efforts. You must be willing to risk loss for the chance to gain your true self. He stood and began walking again, inviting them to follow. We live in a world addicted to distractions, he said. People fill their hours with meaningless tasks, scrolling endlessly, numbing their fears with food or substances or entertainment. But distraction is the enemy of greatness. He stopped by a weathered driftwood log and sat. The path to excellence begins with clarity. Clarity about what you want to create, who you want to become, and what you're willing to give up. He pulled from his bag a simple piece of paper, just a list with two columns. One side is what you must let go, the other is what you will embrace. You cannot have both. Holly? He handed the paper to the artist, who read aloud, "Let go of fear, let go of self-doubt, let go of excuses, let go of people who drain your energy, let go of busyness without purpose." On the other side, embrace courage, embrace belief in yourself, embrace discipline, embrace relationships that inspire and support you, embrace focused work on what matters. The entrepreneur looked down at her own list, realizing how many things she was still clutching tightly: emails, approval, the illusion of control. Letting go is not weakness, the billionaire said. It's strength. It's the ultimate act of self-respect, because you're saying, I deserve more than this. I deserve a life where I'm fully alive. The artist closed his eyes, imagining the chains falling away. He thought about the art he had abandoned, the dreams he'd buried under fear. The pain of letting go was real, but so was the promise on the other side. They sat in silence for a long moment, the ocean's rhythm syncing with their thoughts. Then the billionaire shared something he called the 4 daily rituals to escape mediocrity. 1. The morning ritual. Own your first hour. Use it to strengthen your mind, heart, body, and soul. This sets the tone for the entire day. 2. The disconnection ritual. Spend a minimum of 60 minutes daily away from screens and noise. This cultivates presence and creativity. 3. The growth ritual. Read or listen to something inspiring every day. Feed your mind with ideas that expand your thinking. 4. The reflection ritual. Journal nightly. Write down your wins, lessons, and intentions. This builds self-awareness and focus. These rituals, he said, aren't optional if you want to rise above average. They're your weapons in the war against mediocrity. The entrepreneur nodded slowly. She felt a new hunger, a restlessness that told her this was no longer just about business success. This was about reclaiming her soul. The artist felt tears prick his eyes, not for sorrow, but for the life he was finally ready to live. As the sun climbed higher, warming the shore, the billionaire stood. Today, you make a choice, he said. You either keep living in the shadows of your potential, or you step into the light of your becoming. You either cling to the ordinary or embrace the extraordinary. He looked at each of them, eyes fierce yet kind. Mediocrity is a slow death. But greatness? Greatness is a life lived on fire. It's messy, it's hard, it's beautiful, and it's waiting for you to show up. They left the beach that day with heavy hearts and hopeful spirits. The weight of their old lives pressed down, but so did the wings they had just started to grow. And for the first time in a long time, they understood. Letting go of mediocrity wasn't just a decision. It was the only way to become legendary. Chapter 5. A bizarre adventure into morning mastery. The sun had barely cracked the horizon when they found themselves gathered once again on that quiet beach, the waves whispering secrets only the dawn could hear. The entrepreneur and the artist were no longer strangers to the 5 a.m. routine. The initial excitement had begun to settle into a fragile rhythm, but doubts lingered. Could this morning mastery truly transform their tangled lives? The barefoot billionaire awaited them, calm and expectant. Today, he said, we dive deep into what I call the victory hour, the hour that shapes your entire day and, eventually, your life. He led them to a simple wooden bench overlooking the ocean. As they sat, he pulled from his bag a worn leather pouch, pulling out 3 objects: a stopwatch, a small journal, and a worn pair of running shoes. This, he began, is your toolkit for mastery, not because the objects themselves hold power, but because what you do with them will define you. He explained the core of his teaching, the 20-20-20 formula, dividing the first hour of the day into 3 focused segments, each lasting 20 minutes. The first 20 minutes, he said, is about movement. Sweat is the greatest antidote to stress and the best way to ignite your brain. It floods your system with dopamine and serotonin, setting a positive tone. The artist frowned. But I'm not athletic. I don't run marathons or lift weights. Neither do most people, the billionaire smiled. It's not about intensity, it's about commitment. Walk fast, do jumping jacks, dance in your room. The point is to get your heart pumping and blood flowing. The entrepreneur nodded, recalling how her mornings were usually filled with emails and frantic scheduling, not movement. He continued, "The next 20 minutes is for reflection. This is where you reset your mind and heart. Meditation, journaling, or deep breathing exercises. Here you connect with your purpose and release the mental clutter." The billionaire demonstrated a simple breathing technique. Inhale deeply through the nose, hold, exhale slowly through the mouth. Try this daily. It builds focus and calms anxiety. Finally, the last 20 minutes is growth. Read, listen to podcasts, study something that challenges you. Growth is the engine that propels you forward. The entrepreneur whispered, "I haven't read a book for pleasure in years." "Start now," he said gently. They practiced the routine together. The artist jogged slowly along the shoreline, feeling muscles awaken after years of neglect. The entrepreneur closed her eyes, journaling her fears and aspirations, feeling an unfamiliar peace settle. The billionaire watched, pleased but serious. Mastery is a bizarre adventure because it asks you to rewrite your morning story, to defy your habits and comfort zones. But the reward? A life on your terms. He handed them each a small notebook. Track your progress. Celebrate small wins. This journey isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. As the sun rose fully, casting golden light over the waves, they felt something shift. Not a sudden transformation, but the first steady steps toward reclaiming their days and their lives. The road ahead was strange and challenging, but the promise of mastery made every early morning worth it. Chapter 6: A Flight to Peak Productivity, Virtuosity, and Undefeatability. The dawn was crisp and sharp when they met again, this time at the edge of a cliff overlooking the endless ocean. The waves below crashed with relentless power, a reminder that nature itself never stops moving forward, never gives in to stagnation. The entrepreneur and the artist stood silently, their breaths visible in the cold morning air, both eager and uneasy about what the billionaire had promised, a flight to their highest potential. He greeted them with that calm, steady presence, his eyes reflecting a deep knowing. Today, we leave behind the distractions of ordinary productivity and step into a world few ever visit, a world of peak performance, mastery, and true invincibility. The entrepreneur shifted, skeptical but curious. She had spent years chasing deadlines, managing teams, and juggling 1,000 urgent tasks. Yet, despite her relentless effort, exhaustion and overwhelm had become constant companions. Could this man really show her a way to break free from that cycle? The artist listened intently, knowing his own creative energy was often swallowed by procrastination and self-doubt. He longed for a system that would allow him to create without fear, to perform at his best without burning out. The billionaire began by outlining a simple but profound truth. You cannot win the day if you lose the morning. The foundation of peak productivity starts with owning your morning hours, but it requires more than just waking early. It demands a total mindset shift, a rigorous daily discipline that builds not just habits, but character. He introduced the concept of the three interior empires: mindset, heartset, and healthset, revisited with new depth. Mindset, the mental clarity and focus that let you tackle complex problems and creative challenges without distraction. Heartset, emotional resilience and balance, the ability to manage stress, stay calm under pressure, and harness positive emotions. Healthset, the physical vitality and stamina that fuel sustained effort without fatigue. These three empires, he explained, must be nourished daily. Neglect one, and your productivity crumbles. Nourish them all, and you become virtually undefeatable. Next, he introduced a powerful technique called the tight bubble of total focus. Imagine yourself inside an invisible bubble where distractions cannot penetrate. This bubble is your sanctuary during work sessions. It requires absolute commitment: no emails, no social media, no multitasking, only the task at hand. He recommended breaking the day into 90-minute sprints. Science shows that human focus naturally ebbs after about 90 minutes. Honor that rhythm. Work hard, then rest deeply. The billionaire stressed the importance of active breaks: walking, stretching, meditating, to recharge before the next sprint. The entrepreneur frowned. But I have so many demands, meetings, interruptions. How can I protect this bubble? He smiled. By setting boundaries, saying no, scheduling your day with discipline, not just reacting to urgent demands. The most productive people guard their time like treasure. He then shared his secret weapon for creativity and peak performance, the twilight shutdown. The hour before sleep is sacred. No screens, no work, no worry. Instead, engage in calming rituals like reading, journaling, or gentle stretching. This quiet time allows your mind to process the day and prepares you for deep restorative sleep, the foundation of everything. The artist nodded slowly, remembering nights spent scrolling endlessly, chasing inspiration that never came. He realized that respecting his sleep was part of respecting his art. The billionaire didn't stop there. He introduced the idea of virtuosity, the relentless pursuit of excellence in a chosen craft or calling. Virtuosity demands deliberate practice, deep focus, and a refusal to settle for good enough. It is a lifelong commitment. He recounted stories of legendary performers, musicians, athletes, thinkers, who spent thousands of hours honing their skills, not for fame or fortune, but for mastery itself. You don't have to be the best in the world, he said, but you must be the best you can be. Excellence is a habit, a mindset, and a sacred duty. The entrepreneur felt a fire ignite inside her. She thought of the many half-finished projects, the constant compromises, and the endless chasing of other people's expectations. Maybe it was time to own her work with the discipline of a virtuoso. Finally, the billionaire spoke of undefeatability. It's not about never failing. It's about developing the mental and emotional strength to rise every time you fall. Stronger, wiser, more determined. He shared his own story of hitting rock bottom, losing everything, and then rising back with a new philosophy. Failure is feedback. Obstacles are opportunities, and resilience is the ultimate weapon. He ended with a simple but powerful mantra: own your mornings, master your focus, pursue excellence, build resilience. This is your flight to greatness. The entrepreneur and artist sat in silence, letting the message sink deep into their bones. They knew the journey ahead would be challenging, filled with discipline, sacrifice, and relentless effort, but they also sensed the promise of transformation, a life not ruled by distraction, fatigue, or fear, but by clarity, strength, and unstoppable momentum. As the sun climbed higher, they rose from the cliff, ready to take their first steps on this new flight path toward peak productivity, virtuosity, and the undefeatability of a legendary life. Chapter 7: Preparation for Transformation begins in paradise. The sun rose slowly over the horizon, casting a warm golden light across the sprawling garden of the secluded villa. Palm trees swayed gently in the early morning breeze, birds sang softly, and the distant sound of waves crashing against the shore filled the air with a peaceful rhythm. It was a place seemingly untouched by time, a paradise that held the promise of new beginnings. The entrepreneur and the artist stood side by side on the stone path leading to the main house, their hearts pounding with anticipation and a mixture of nerves. Their journey so far had been filled with revelations, challenges, and moments of deep reflection. Yet, as they approached the entrance to the sanctuary, they understood that true transformation was about to begin. The barefoot billionaire was waiting for them on the veranda, his eyes shining with quiet confidence. "Welcome to the place where your preparation begins," he said simply. "This is your training ground, not just for mastering mornings or productivity, but for evolving into the fullest version of yourselves." The artist looked around in awe. Everything here, from the lush greenery to the crystal clear pools, felt like it was designed to nurture growth. The entrepreneur took a deep breath, feeling the tension in her shoulders begin to ease. Transformation, the billionaire continued, isn't an event. It's a process, a series of small, deliberate steps taken every day. And it starts with your environment. Your space must support your highest self. He led them inside, where simple, elegant rooms awaited, free from distractions, filled with natural light, and infused with a calm energy that invited presence. Your external world shapes your internal world, he explained. If you want to become legendary, you must craft a life that reflects your aspirations, starting with where you live and work. The entrepreneur nodded, remembering the cluttered, chaotic spaces she usually occupied, her desk piled with papers, her phone constantly buzzing with notifications. She realized that her environment had become a physical reflection of her overwhelmed mind. The billionaire guided them through a routine that would form the foundation of their days in paradise. First, you will begin each morning with silence, he said. No screens, no chatter, just stillness. This is where you connect to your purpose and ground yourself. They sat together in the garden, the only sounds the gentle rustling of leaves and distant waves. The artist closed his eyes, letting the calm wash over him, while the entrepreneur felt a peace she hadn't known in years. After this silence, they moved to movement. Physical vitality is the fuel of transformation, the billionaire said. You will engage in deliberate exercise, not as punishment or obligation, but as a celebration of your body's strength and potential. They practiced slow, mindful stretches and light yoga, feeling their bodies awaken and align with their intentions. The artist, who had often neglected his physical health, felt gratitude for this new way of honoring himself. Next came journaling, a daily ritual to capture thoughts, fears, dreams, and progress. Reflection is the compass that guides transformation, the billionaire explained. It illuminates your path and reveals what needs to change. They wrote honestly, without judgment, exploring their inner landscapes with growing clarity. The billionaire then introduced the concept of nourishing the four interior empires: mindset, heart set, health set, and soul set. Each day in paradise, they would focus intentionally on these realms. Mindset, cultivating empowering beliefs and sharpening focus through study and contemplation. Heart set, healing emotional wounds, practicing gratitude, and deepening self love. Health set, building physical strength and energy with nourishing food and movement. Soul set, connecting to meaning and purpose through meditation, nature, and creative expression. He emphasized that true transformation requires balance across four empires. Neglect one, and the whole system falters. Over the days, they practiced this holistic approach. The entrepreneur found herself slowing down, listening more deeply to her intuition rather than rushing toward external achievements. The artist discovered a renewed passion for creativity, inspired by the tranquility and support surrounding him. Meals were simple but vibrant, made from fresh fruits, vegetables, and whole foods that energized rather than weighed them down. Conversations shifted from stress and schedules to dreams, values, and visions for the future. In this paradise, time felt both expansive and focused, a paradox that invited them to be fully present while moving steadily toward their goals. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky with hues of orange and pink, the billionaire gathered them once more. Transformation is a journey through resistance, he said. You will face doubts, fears, and old habits trying to pull you back, but this place is your sanctuary to build strength and resilience. He handed each of them a small stone, smooth and warm from the sun. Let this stone be a symbol, he said. Whenever you feel the pull of mediocrity or fear, hold it in your hand and remember your commitment to transformation. The entrepreneur felt tears welling up, overwhelmed by the weight of her own resistance and the hope that this new path offered. The artist gripped his stone tightly, a silent promise to himself. As days turned into weeks, they immersed themselves in the rhythm of paradise, waking early, honoring their rituals, and facing their inner challenges with courage. They began to see subtle but profound shifts: clearer thinking, steadier emotions, renewed energy, and a deeper connection to their purpose. Preparation, they realized, was not just about mastering techniques or habits. It was about creating a container, a sacred space within and around themselves that could hold the transformation they desired. And in this paradise, surrounded by nature's beauty and guided by wisdom, their true journey was just beginning. Chapter 8: The 5 a.m. Method, the morning routine of world builders. The first light of dawn had barely begun to brush the sky when the entrepreneur, the artist, and the barefoot billionaire gathered once again. This time, the setting was a small, sun-dappled clearing in the heart of the villa's lush garden, where birdsong and the whisper of leaves created a natural symphony of peace and possibility. The billionaire smiled warmly at his companions. Today, he began, I reveal the secret weapon used by the world's greatest creators, leaders, and visionaries, the 5 a.m. method. This morning routine is not just about waking early, it is a ritual of transformation, the very foundation of building worlds. The entrepreneur shifted, curiosity mixing with skepticism. Why 5 a.m.? Why not just start the day when you're ready? He answered without hesitation. Because the early morning is the only time of day untouched by distractions. It is a sacred time when your mind is fresh, your spirit is unburdened, and your will is strongest. This is the moment when you can take control of your day and, by extension, your life. He explained that the 5 a.m. method is designed to leverage this precious hour through a structured yet flexible formula known famously as the 20-20-20 rule. 20 minutes of movement, 20 minutes of reflection, and 20 minutes of growth. First 20 minutes movement. Your body is your vehicle, he said, and without fuel and maintenance, it will break down. Movement in the early morning is not just exercise, it is a statement of intent. It shakes off lethargy, floods the brain with mood-boosting chemicals, and ignites your energy for the day ahead. The artist, who had long struggled with inertia, listened closely as the billionaire described simple yet effective exercises: brisk walking, jumping jacks, yoga stretches, anything to get the heart rate up and the blood flowing. Movement also acts as a mental reset. It disrupts old patterns of thought and prepares you to tackle new challenges with fresh eyes. Second 20 minutes, reflection. The billionaire guided them to sit on smooth stones near a tranquil pond. This is your time to cultivate clarity and calm. Reflection can take many forms: meditation, journaling, prayer, or simply sitting in silence. He emphasized the power of journaling, writing down 3 things you're grateful for, your top priorities for the day, and any fears or challenges weighing on your mind. Reflection is the gateway to self mastery, he said. It aligns your heart and mind with your highest purpose. The entrepreneur found herself surprised by how much lighter she felt after just a few minutes of quiet contemplation, her busy mind beginning to settle like a stirred pond, finally at rest. Third 20 minutes, growth. Knowledge without application is wasted energy, the billionaire said, handing each of them a book and a journal. Use this time to learn, to feed your mind with ideas that expand your perspective and deepen your understanding. He stressed the importance of daily learning, whether reading a few pages, listening to a podcast, or studying a new skill. This time of growth, he explained, keeps the mind sharp and the soul hungry, preventing stagnation and sparking creativity. As they practiced the 20-20-20 routine together, the billionaire shared stories of world builders, artists, inventors, leaders, who credited their early morning rituals with their ability to innovate, inspire, and lead movements. The 5 a.m. hour, he said, is a hidden realm where magic happens. It is where giants are born and legends forged. He warned, however, that the method required more than just discipline. It demanded a deep commitment to oneself. Waking early is easy compared to the work of facing your inner fears, doubts, and distractions that rise up when you try to change. To support this commitment, he introduced the idea of habit installation protocols, small, consistent steps that help cement the routine into daily life. This included setting a strict bedtime, preparing the night before, and removing all distractions from the bedroom. The entrepreneur reflected on her previous failed attempts to change her mornings. The problem, she realized, had not been waking early, but the lack of a clear, structured plan and support system. The billionaire also emphasized the role of accountability partners, trusted individuals who help keep you on track and motivated. Finally, he spoke about the power of celebration, acknowledging and rewarding small wins to build momentum and reinforce positive change. As the sun climbed higher, the group ended the session with a simple but powerful affirmation: own your morning, own your life. The entrepreneur and artist left the clearing with a sense of purpose and a practical toolkit. The 5 a.m. method was no longer a vague ideal, but a tangible path forward, one that promised not just productivity, but transformation. The billionaire watched them go, a satisfied smile crossing his face. He knew the journey ahead would challenge them in ways they could not yet imagine, but he also knew this morning ritual was the key that unlocked doors to a legendary life. For in the quiet, sacred hours before the world awoke, they would build their empires, one morning at a time. Chapter 9: A Framework for the Expression of Greatness. As dawn's early light spilled across the horizon, the entrepreneur, the artist, and the barefoot billionaire gathered once again, this time beneath the towering canopy of ancient trees that framed the villa's garden. The air was cool and crisp, carrying the scent of earth and blooming flowers, a reminder that growth, while sometimes slow, was inevitable when nurtured. The billionaire's eyes gleamed with a quiet intensity as he addressed them. Today, we explore the architecture of greatness, not as a distant ideal, but as a practical framework you can live by. Greatness is not reserved for a chosen few. It is an expression available to anyone willing to embrace the disciplines and mindsets that fuel it. The entrepreneur leaned forward, eager for clarity. She had spent years chasing success without feeling truly fulfilled. The artist, too, sought a way to transform his scattered creative bursts into sustained impact. The billionaire began by explaining that greatness is built upon four fundamental pillars, what he called the four interior empires: mindset, heart set, health set, and soul set. Each represented an essential domain of self mastery, and together they formed a foundation for expressing greatness in all areas of life. Mindset, the realm of thoughts, beliefs, and attitudes. Cultivating a growth mindset is vital, seeing challenges as opportunities, failures as lessons, and potential as limitless. Without the right mindset, even the most talented individuals fall short of their promise. The entrepreneur nodded thoughtfully. She realized how often her own mindset had been dominated by fear of failure and the need for approval rather than boldness and self trust. The emotional core. Mastery over emotions, particularly fear, doubt, anger, and impatience, is crucial. Emotional intelligence allows you to navigate relationships, remain resilient in adversity, and harness the power of positive emotions like gratitude, love, and joy. The artist reflected on his struggles with self doubt and the emotional highs and lows that sapped his creative energy. He understood now that nurturing his heart set was as important as any technique or skill. Health set, the physical vessel. Peak performance demands physical vitality. This means regular movement, quality nutrition, restorative sleep, and mindful recovery. Neglecting health set leads to burnout, distraction, and diminished capacity. Both the entrepreneur and artist recognized how their hectic schedules and poor habits had eroded their health, sapping energy and focus. Soul set, the spiritual dimension. Connection to a higher purpose, meaning, and values fuels enduring motivation and fulfillment. Whether through meditation, nature, service, or creativity, nourishing the soul set aligns daily actions with the deepest parts of one's being. The billionaire emphasized that ignoring soul set leads to emptiness despite external achievements. True greatness arises from aligning purpose with action. With these pillars outlined, he introduced a practical framework for daily living. The 20-20-20 formula, a morning routine that balances movement, reflection, and growth to strengthen all four interior empires. Yet, beyond routines and habits, the billionaire stressed the necessity of focus and ruthlessness in prioritization. Greatness demands saying no, often, to distractions, comfort, and low value activities. It's about investing your time and energy where it counts most. He taught them the concept of the tight bubble of total focus, a sacred mental space cultivated through deep work blocks free from interruptions. In this bubble, creativity and productivity soar. The entrepreneur shared her constant battle with email, meetings, and social media, which shattered her focus. The billionaire encouraged her to reclaim her calendar as a fortress, guarding her peak hours fiercely. Next came the principle of slow growth and consistency. Greatness isn't an overnight phenomenon, but a lifelong commitment to daily improvements, tiny wins that compound over time. Champions are made by those who show up again and again, even when motivation wanes. To illustrate, he recounted the story of a legendary musician who practiced scales every day for decades, not for immediate glory, but for mastery. This steady devotion separated the exceptional from the average. The artist felt a stirring in his chest, understanding that the erratic bursts of creativity he prized needed to be married with discipline and routine. The billionaire then delved into the critical role of rest and renewal. Contrary to popular culture's glorification of relentless hustle, true greatness demands balance, periods of intense focus followed by deep recovery. Sleep, solitude, play, and nature are not luxuries. They are necessities for sustained excellence. He introduced simple rituals, scheduled breaks, digital detoxes, and time spent in nature to recharge the body and mind. Finally, he shared a transformative mindset shift: embrace failure as feedback. Greatness is forged in the crucible of setbacks. The difference between those who succeed and those who quit lies in resilience, the ability to learn, adapt, and persist. The entrepreneur recalled painful failures that had left her doubting her worth. The artist thought about creative blocks that once paralyzed him. Both felt a new resolve to see challenges as stepping stones. The billionaire closed with a powerful affirmation: greatness is not a destination, but a way of being. It is the daily expression of your highest self through disciplined practice, purposeful living, and unwavering commitment. He challenged them to design their own personal framework for greatness, tailored to their unique strengths, values, and goals, but rooted firmly in the four interior empires. As the sun climbed higher, bathing the garden in light, the entrepreneur and artist sat quietly, absorbing the gravity of this new perspective. They understood that greatness wasn't reserved for legends or the gifted few. It was the natural outcome of mastering themselves, day by day. And with that realization, they took the first steps toward expressing their own greatness, ready to build not just successful lives, but meaningful legacies. Chapter 10: The Four Focuses of History Makers. The morning light filtered softly through the canopy, casting dappled patterns on the ground where the entrepreneur, the artist, and the barefoot billionaire once again gathered. Their journey had deepened, their understanding sharpened, but the billionaire's eyes sparkled with anticipation. Today's lesson was pivotal. Greatness, he began, is not accidental. It is forged through focused intention. The history makers, those who change the course of humanity, do so because they master four essential focuses. These focuses align your energy, actions, and purpose toward lasting impact. The entrepreneur leaned in, eager to grasp this next secret. The artist listened intently, sensing the weight behind these words. Focus 1: capitalize on your unique talents. You have been given unique gifts, skills, perspectives, experiences that no one else has. Your first focus is to identify and fully develop these talents. History makers don't waste time trying to be someone else. They double down on their uniqueness. The billionaire explained that honing your natural abilities creates leverage, a powerful force multiplier that sets you apart. The entrepreneur thought about her strengths in strategy and leadership, realizing she needed to cultivate them more intentionally rather than dabbling in everything. Focus 2: build meaningful relationships. No one creates alone, he said. Your network, mentors, collaborators, supporters, shapes your journey. Focus on deepening relationships that inspire, challenge, and support your growth. The artist reflected on the isolation that had often stifled his creativity. He understood now that connection was essential for breakthrough. The billionaire emphasized quality over quantity. A few trusted allies are worth more than thousands of casual contacts. Focus 3: contribute beyond yourself. History makers don't just serve their own interests, they create value that benefits others, their communities, industries, or even humanity at large. Your third focus is to align your work with a higher purpose. He challenged them to ask, how does my work serve others? What legacy do I want to leave? The entrepreneur felt a stirring. She wanted her company to matter beyond profits, to make a positive impact. Focus 4: embrace relentless learning. The final focus is to remain a student for life. The world changes rapidly, and those who stop learning fall behind. History makers are curious, adaptable, and open to new ideas. He urged them to cultivate humility and hunger for knowledge through reading, mentorship, reflection, and experimentation. The artist smiled, inspired to explore new creative forms and techniques. The billionaire summarized, master these four focuses, and you align your talents, relationships, purpose, and growth. This alignment is the engine of extraordinary impact. He encouraged them to create daily habits reflecting these focuses, dedicating time to skill development, nurturing key relationships, engaging in meaningful work, and committing to continual learning. As the sun warmed the garden, the entrepreneur and artist felt clarity and renewed purpose. The path of history makers was not reserved for the chosen few. It was open to anyone willing to focus their life with intention and courage. They left the clearing knowing that greatness is not just about grand achievements, but about daily choices that build momentum toward lasting significance. And with that, They took another step forward, focused, deliberate, and ready to make history in their own lives. Chapter 11. Navigating the Tides of Life. The sky was overcast that morning, the air heavy with the promise of rain, yet the atmosphere around the villa was calm and reflective. The entrepreneur, the artist, and the barefoot billionaire gathered once more beneath a sprawling fig tree, its roots deeply anchored in the earth, a symbol of stability amid change. The billionaire's voice was steady and deliberate. Life is a sea, ever changing and unpredictable. To live a legendary life, you must learn not just to sail, but to navigate the tides, the highs and lows, the storms and calms, with skill and grace. He looked at them both, seeing the subtle tension beneath their determination. Success isn't a straight path, it's a journey through uncertainty. The difference between those who thrive and those who falter is how they respond to life's tides. The entrepreneur admitted, I often feel overwhelmed by the chaos, the unexpected challenges that knock me off course. The artist nodded. Sometimes it feels like I'm drowning in doubt and setbacks. The billionaire smiled gently. You are not alone. Every history maker faces this. What sets them apart is resilience, the ability to adapt, learn, and persist. He outlined 3 essential skills for navigating life's tides. 1. Emotional agility. Your emotions will rise and fall like waves. The key is not to suppress them, but to observe and manage them with awareness. Practice mindfulness, recognize your feelings without judgment, and choose your responses deliberately. The artist realized how often he let frustration and fear control his creativity. This skill was about reclaiming that power. Strategic flexibility. Plans will change. Opportunities and obstacles will appear unexpectedly. Be willing to adjust your course without losing sight of your destination. Flexibility is not weakness, it's strength. The entrepreneur recalled times she clung stubbornly to failing strategies. This lesson felt like permission to evolve. Anchoring in purpose. When storms hit, your purpose is your anchor. It holds you steady and provides meaning. Regularly reconnect with your why, the deeper reason behind your goals. They practiced a simple exercise, closing their eyes and visualizing their purpose as a glowing light within, a constant guide through turbulent waters. The billionaire then shared the wisdom of embracing failure as a tide, not a wreck. Failures rise, crash, and recede, but they don't have to sink you. Instead, learn to ride them, gaining momentum for your next wave. He told stories of famous figures who faced repeated setbacks, yet navigated their way to success by staying focused and adaptable. Finally, he urged them to build support systems, trusted companions, mentors, and communities who can help weather storms. As the first drops of rain began to fall, they stood together, feeling a new confidence. They were no longer at the mercy of life's tides, but ready to navigate them with wisdom and courage. The journey was far from easy, but with emotional agility, strategic flexibility, and a grounded purpose, they could face whatever came next. And in mastering the tides of life, they were mastering themselves, the true path to a legendary existence. Chapter 12, The 5 a.m. Club discovers the habit installation protocol. The morning sun filtered softly through the leaves as the entrepreneur, the artist, and the barefoot billionaire gathered once again in the peaceful garden. After weeks of practicing the morning routines, embracing new philosophies, and challenging old habits, a new phase of their journey awaited, a crucial step to ensure lasting transformation. The billionaire's face held a knowing smile. Up to now, you've learned the what and the why of mastery, he said. Today, you'll learn the how, the science behind making these new habits stick. Welcome to the habit installation protocol. The entrepreneur leaned forward, intrigued. She'd struggled before to maintain any routine beyond a few days or weeks. The artist nodded, hopeful this would be the missing piece. The billionaire began by explaining that habit formation isn't about motivation alone. Motivation fluctuates and often fades. Real change comes from understanding how the brain installs new patterns through repetition and consistency. He outlined the protocol's 4 distinct phases, each lasting 22 days, totaling about 66 days to fully install a new habit. 1. Destruction phase, days 122. This is the hardest phase. Your brain resists change, triggering discomfort, cravings for old habits, and even self-sabotage. Expect frustration and urges to quit. Awareness is key here. Recognize these feelings as part of the process, not failure. The entrepreneur recalled mornings when temptation to hit snooze nearly overwhelmed her. Now she understood that resistance was a signal she was rewiring her brain. 2. Installation phase. Days 23 to 44. New neural pathways begin to form. The habit feels easier, but it's still fragile. Focus on consistency, even if progress feels slow. Celebrate small wins to build momentum. The artist smiled, thinking of how after a few weeks, his morning journaling started to feel natural rather than a chore. 3. Integration phase. Days 45 to 66. The habit becomes part of your identity. You start seeing yourself differently as someone who owns this routine. Motivation stabilizes and the behavior feels automatic. They both reflected on moments when waking early no longer felt like a struggle, but an essential part of their day. 4. Domestication phase. Beyond day 66, the habit is now ingrained and sustainable even under stress. Your brain rewards you with satisfaction and pride. You can build on this foundation for more growth. The billionaire emphasized patience. Transformation isn't instant. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Trust the process. He then shared practical tips to support the protocol. Anchor the habit to an existing routine, e.g., brush teeth immediately after waking. Remove friction by preparing the night before, laying out clothes, setting alarms. Use visual cues like notes or reminders. Accountability partners to encourage and check in. Celebrate progress daily to reinforce positive feelings. The entrepreneur felt a surge of empowerment. This framework demystified her past failures and gave her a clear roadmap. The artist added, "So, even when I slip up, I'm not failing. I'm still in the process." Exactly, the billionaire said. Relapses are part of the journey. What matters is getting back on track without judgment. He concluded with a powerful reminder: habits shape your destiny. Master the habit installation protocol, and you master your life. As the trio embraced this new wisdom, they felt more equipped than ever to sustain their early morning routines, deepen their transformation, and step boldly into the lives they were creating. The 5 a.m. Club was no longer just an idea, it was becoming a way of being. Chapter 13, The 5 a.m. Club learns the 20-20-20 formula. The first light of dawn had barely broken when the entrepreneur, the artist, and the barefoot billionaire assembled once more in the serene garden of the villa. The air was crisp, filled with the promise of new beginnings. They had already explored the philosophy behind mastering mornings and the science of habit formation, but now the billionaire was ready to reveal the core practical tool that would transform their lives: the 20-20-20 formula. The billionaire smiled knowingly. Up until now, you have learned the importance of owning your morning, but today you will learn exactly how to do it. The 20-20-20 formula is the blueprint used by the world's highest achievers to start their day with purpose, energy, and clarity. It is simple, yet incredibly effective. The entrepreneur's eyes brightened with curiosity. She had often struggled to make mornings productive, overwhelmed by the chaos that came after waking. The artist, too, was eager for a routine that could bring discipline without killing creativity. "Let me break it down for you," the billionaire said, stepping to the center of the clearing where a smooth stone bench awaited. "The first hour of your day after waking is sacred. It shapes your energy, focus, and mindset for everything that follows. The 20-20-20 formula divides this hour into 3 focused segments, each lasting 20 minutes. Move, reflect, and grow. The first 20 minutes. Move. Movement is your first priority," he began. "When you get your body moving immediately after waking, you activate your brain and flood your system with mood-enhancing neurotransmitters: dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. These chemicals set the tone for a positive, energized day." The billionaire described the science behind this. Movement increases oxygen flow to the brain, stimulates the release of hormones that boost cognition and mood, and reduces cortisol, the stress hormone. It's like a mental reset, shaking off the sluggishness of sleep and priming you for focus and creativity. The artist, who had long battled morning inertia, listened closely. "But I'm not athletic," he said. "Do I have to do intense exercise?" "Not at all," the billionaire assured him. "The key is consistency, not intensity. Whether it's brisk walking, stretching, yoga, jumping jacks, or dancing in your room, the goal is to get your heart rate up and your body awake. This 20-minute movement doesn't just prepare your body, it prepares your mind to take on challenges with enthusiasm. The entrepreneur reflected on how her mornings often started with coffee and scrolling through emails, a passive routine that left her feeling drained before the day even began. The 20-20-20 formula demanded a different approach, active engagement with her body first. They practiced a few movements together, deep stretches, gentle jogging in place, and rhythmic breathing exercises. The artist felt warmth spreading through his limbs, a new sensation of readiness. The second 20 minutes, reflect. Next, the billionaire continued, you enter the reflection phase. This is a sacred time to connect with your inner world, to calm the mind, clarify your intentions, and align your heart with your purpose. They moved to a shaded spot beneath a large tree, sitting comfortably with closed eyes. The billionaire guided them through breathing exercises to cultivate presence. Reflection can take many forms: meditation, journaling, prayer, or simply sitting in silence. The purpose is to create mental space, release worries, and focus your attention on what matters most. He emphasized journaling as a powerful tool, writing down 3 things you're grateful for, your top 3 priorities for the day, and any challenges or fears you want to acknowledge and release. The entrepreneur was surprised by the impact of this practice. The simple act of gratitude shifted her mindset from scarcity and stress to abundance and possibility. Writing down priorities helped her feel less scattered. The artist found the silence restorative, allowing him to observe his thoughts without judgment and to set clear intentions for his creative work. The billionaire shared that this phase was critical for emotional regulation, cultivating a heart set that fosters resilience, optimism, and focus. It's where you build the mental and emotional foundation to face the day's challenges without being derailed by negativity or stress. The third 20 minutes, grow. The final 20 minutes, the billionaire said with a smile, is devoted to growth. This is where you feed your mind with ideas and knowledge that expand your horizons and sharpen your skills. He passed around books, journals, and devices loaded with educational content. Read, listen to podcasts, study languages, or learn new skills. The key is deliberate, consistent learning every day. The entrepreneur recalled how her reading habit had fallen away in the busyness of life. The 2020 formula gave her a dedicated window to reclaim learning as a daily priority. The artist felt inspired to explore new artistic techniques and ideas during this time, knowing that growth fueled creativity. The billionaire stressed that this growth phase was not about mindless consumption, but intentional enrichment, pursuing knowledge that aligned with your goals and values. He warned against multitasking and passive scrolling during this time. Focus deeply on what you're learning. This 20 minutes is an investment that compounds over years, fueling your evolution and mastery. The power of routine and ritual. After explaining each segment, the billionaire emphasized that the strength of the 20-20-20 formula lies in its ritualistic nature. When you repeat this practice every morning, you rewire your brain for excellence. Habits are the building blocks of character, and character determines destiny. He urged them to create sacred spaces and minimize distractions. No phones, emails, or social media during this first hour. Protect this time fiercely. It is your most valuable asset. The entrepreneur understood that this discipline was about creating a container for transformation, an intentional pause before the world's noise invaded. The artist nodded, recognizing that a structured routine could channel his scattered energy into productive flow. Overcoming challenges. The billionaire acknowledged that adopting the 20-20-20 formula wouldn't be easy. Your brain will resist change. Old habits will call you back like sirens. You will want to quit. This is normal. He shared strategies for overcoming resistance. Prepare the night before by setting out clothes and materials. Get enough sleep to make waking at 5 a.m. sustainable. Use accountability partners to encourage consistency. Celebrate small wins daily to build momentum. Remember, he said, this is a journey, not a sprint. Every day you commit, you strengthen your self-mastery. Real-life transformation. As the sun rose higher, the entrepreneur and artist reflected on how this formula could reshape their lives. The entrepreneur saw how starting her day with movement, reflection, and growth would give her control over her energy and focus rather than letting distractions dictate her hours. The artist realized that integrating this formula would not only boost his creativity, but also cultivate inner peace and discipline he had long sought. The billionaire concluded, the 2020 formula is more than a routine. It is a framework for building a legendary life, one morning at a time. With renewed determination, they rose together, ready to step into the new day with purpose, clarity, and unstoppable momentum. The 5 a.m. Club had discovered its heartbeat, the formula that would transform their mornings and ultimately their lives. Chapter 14, The 5 a.m. Club grasps the essentialness of sleep. The villa garden was quiet as the first fragile light of dawn crept across the horizon. The entrepreneur, the artist, and the barefoot billionaire gathered beneath a towering oak tree, the same tree under which many of their transformational conversations had taken place. But today's lesson was different. This time, the billionaire's voice carried a deeper urgency. If you want to master your mornings, he began, you must first master your nights. Sleep isn't an optional luxury or a passive break in your day. It is the foundation upon which every element of your greatness depends. Your health, your creativity, your focus, and your emotional resilience. The entrepreneur exchanged a knowing glance with the artist. She had spent years trying to power through exhaustion with caffeine and willpower, only to find herself depleted, distracted, and overwhelmed. The artist nodded quietly, recognizing his own erratic sleep habits had left his creativity inconsistent and his mind foggy. The billionaire's eyes fixed on them, unwavering. Understanding sleep is the missing key that unlocks your potential. Without it, no routine, no strategy, no ambition will produce lasting results. Sleep, the billionaire explained, is the body's built-in reset mechanism. During the deepest stages, the brain consolidates memories, detoxifies harmful metabolic waste, and repairs neural pathways. The body rebuilds muscle, balances hormones, and strengthens immunity. Skimping on this process means losing more than rest. You lose cognitive acuity, emotional balance, and physical vitality. He shared how chronic sleep deprivation impairs decision-making, reduces creativity, and disrupts mood regulation. The very qualities you need to perform at your best are damaged when you shortchange sleep. The entrepreneur sighed, recalling how frequently exhaustion led her to make mistakes or lose patience. The artist reflected on the creative blocks and frustration that often accompanied restless nights. Yet, modern life conspires against good sleep. Artificial light exposure late into the evening delays melatonin production, the hormone signaling the brain to prepare for rest. Screens, caffeine, stress, and irregular schedules disrupt our natural rhythms that are pulling us away from restorative sleep. This led the billionaire to introduce the concept of the circadian rhythm, our internal biological clock synchronized with day and night. Aligning your sleep-wake cycle with natural light cues is vital for optimal functioning. The ideal, he said, is to fall asleep before 10 p.m. and wake around 5 a.m., aligning with the Earth's cycles. This consistency trains your body to release hormones and regulate temperature in harmony with the environment. The entrepreneur hesitated. But what if my work or social life demands I stay up later? He shook his head gently. If you want to be extraordinary, you must make sleep non-negotiable. Sacrificing it for short-term productivity is like burning your most important fuel source for a quick burst. You'll run out long before you reach your destination. Creating the right environment is just as important as timing. The billionaire described the sleep sanctuary, a dark, cool, quiet bedroom free of electronic devices. Blue light from screens suppresses melatonin, so removing phones, laptops, and TVs from the bedroom is crucial. He advised dimming household lights an hour before bedtime to signal the brain to wind down. The entrepreneur recalled her habit of scrolling through social media in bed until the early hours and realized how that wired her brain when it should have been shutting down. Instead, he suggested adopting calming pre-sleep rituals like reading a physical book, journaling to offload thoughts, or practicing gentle breathing exercises to ease into rest. The artist admitted his late-night habits left him restless and distracted. The billionaire encouraged him to replace those with rituals that promote relaxation. Nutrition and movement, the billionaire explained, directly affect sleep quality. Avoiding caffeine after early afternoon prevents it from lingering in your system. Heavy or spicy meals close to bedtime can cause discomfort and indigestion, interrupting sleep cycles. Regular physical activity improves sleep by reducing anxiety and tiring the body naturally, but intense workouts too close to bedtime raise adrenaline and body temperature, making it harder to fall asleep. The entrepreneur nodded, recognizing how her afternoon coffee and late dinners sabotaged her rest and productivity. The billionaire emphasized how restorative sleep fuels creativity and problem solving. During sleep, the subconscious mind works to connect ideas and generate solutions that seem to come out of nowhere after waking. Many breakthroughs and aha moments happen not during work, but in dreams or just after sleep, he said. When you rob yourself of sleep, you cut off this vital source of insight. Moreover, a well rested brain sustains focus longer, processes complex information more effectively, and maintains emotional balance, critical for leadership, innovation, and personal well being. Aware that many struggle to prioritize sleep, the billionaire offered practical steps: set a strict bedtime and wake time to train your body clock, limit naps to early afternoon and keep them under 30 minutes to avoid interfering with nighttime sleep. Manage stress through meditation, journaling, or spending time in nature, all of which calm the nervous system. Expose yourself to natural sunlight during the day to reinforce circadian rhythms. Gradually shift your schedule if needed, making small adjustments over days or weeks. He reminded them that habit change takes patience and persistence. Immediate perfection isn't necessary, steady improvement is the goal. The entrepreneur took a deep breath. I've treated running on empty like a badge of honor. Now I see it's the exact opposite. The artist smiled, grateful for the new respect he had for rest and its power to unlock his potential. The billionaire concluded with quiet conviction: sleep is the fuel that powers your greatness. Protect it fiercely, honor it daily, and you will rise each morning refreshed, focused, and unstoppable. As they parted that morning, the 5 a.m. club embraced a profound truth. Mastering the morning ritual starts the night before. Without deep, restorative sleep, the promise of dawn's transformation remains out of reach. In learning to honor rest, they had taken a vital step toward true mastery, ready to face each day energized, clear-minded, and fully alive. Chapter 15. The 5 a.m. Club is mentored on the 10 tactics of lifelong genius. The early morning air was crisp as the entrepreneur, the artist, and the barefoot billionaire gathered once again beneath the ancient oak in the villa's garden. Their journey had been intense and enlightening, but today's lesson promised to be a pivotal one. The billionaire's gaze held a mixture of warmth and gravity as he prepared to share powerful insights. Genius is not an exclusive gift. It is cultivated through specific habits, disciplines, and ways of thinking. What sets lifelong geniuses apart is their mastery of certain tactics, practical tools that sustain creativity, resilience, and exceptional impact throughout life. The entrepreneur leaned in, eager to learn. The artist's fingers twitched, ready to absorb the strategies that could take his work and life to new heights. Today, I will teach you the 10 tactics of lifelong genius. These are the practices that fuel sustained excellence, no matter your field. He began with the first tactic: creating a tight bubble of total focus. In a world filled with distractions, protecting your attention is your greatest asset. Set aside uninterrupted blocks of time where you can dive deep into your most important work. This sacred space allows you to enter a flow state where complex problems unravel and creativity soars. The entrepreneur reflected on her hectic days filled with endless emails and notifications, realizing how rarely she experienced this deep focus. Next, he introduced the 90-91 rule. Pick your single highest value project, and for the next 90 days, dedicate the first 90 minutes of your workday exclusively to it. This focused approach ensures steady progress on what truly matters. The artist saw how this simple discipline could bring clarity to his scattered creative energy. He then spoke of the second wind workout, a brief session of movement in the afternoon or early evening. Exercise isn't just for fitness. It revitalizes your brain and body, breaking mental fatigue and sparking renewed energy. The entrepreneur nodded, recalling her mid-afternoon slumps and wishing for such a boost. Revisiting the concept of the four interior empires, mindset, heart set, health set, and soul set. The billionaire emphasized balance. Genius flourishes only when all four empires are nurtured. Neglect one, and the whole system weakens. The artist recognized this holistic truth. Creativity was deeply connected to emotional and physical well being. He underscored the importance of daily journaling. Writing each day helps process emotions, track your progress, and clarify your thoughts. It builds self awareness and uncovers insights that fuel growth. The entrepreneur admitted she had abandoned journaling and resolved to reclaim it as a cornerstone of her routine. The billionaire reminded them of the habit installation protocol, the process of embedding new behaviors through consistent repetition, overcoming resistance, and celebrating small wins. Lifelong genius requires constant refinement and evolution of your habits. He then introduced the 60-10 method. Work for 60 minutes with full concentration, then take a 10-minute break. This cycle maximizes productivity and prevents burnout. The artist felt reassured that breaks were not signs of laziness, but scientifically supported rhythms. The learning pyramid was next, a framework illustrating how teaching and active practice lead to the deepest mastery. Don't just consume information passively, engage actively to make learning stick. The billionaire stressed the power of community with the Mastermind Alliance. No one reaches genius alone. Surround yourself with trusted peers who challenge, support, and inspire you. Collective wisdom accelerates growth. The entrepreneur saw how this applied beyond professional networks to genuine, meaningful connections. Finally, he spoke of the ritual of reflection, closing each day by reviewing wins, lessons, and goals. This practice solidifies learning and fuels continuous improvement. They practiced a brief reflection exercise together, feeling its calming and centering effect. As the sun rose higher, the entrepreneur and artist felt empowered, not just inspired, but equipped with actionable tactics to turn potential into mastery. The 5 a.m. club was evolving from a simple morning habit into a full lifestyle of intentionality, focus, and creative excellence. With these 10 tactics now part of their toolkit, they stepped forward ready to shape their lives with purpose, resilience, and greatness, not by chance, but by disciplined design. Chapter 16, The 5 a.m. Club, embraces the twin cycles of elite performance. The morning was calm, and the air carried the faint scent of blooming jasmine as the entrepreneur, the artist, and the barefoot billionaire gathered again beneath the ancient oak tree. They had come far, but today's lesson promised to reveal a profound insight that could transform their understanding of sustainable excellence. The billionaire began with quiet confidence. To perform at your peak consistently, you must learn to work with nature's rhythms, not against them. Elite performance is not about pushing harder without pause. It's about mastering two essential cycles that govern your energy, focus, and recovery. He called these the twin cycles of elite performance, the cycle of intense work and the cycle of deep renewal. The first cycle was the rhythm of focused effort. When you engage in deep work, whether creative, strategic, or physical, you tap into your highest potential. But this state is limited. You cannot sustain it indefinitely without diminishing returns. He explained that brain science shows we can only maintain peak concentration for limited periods, roughly 60 to 90 minutes, before fatigue sets in. Elite performers honor this natural limit, using focused bursts of work followed by deliberate breaks. The entrepreneur nodded thoughtfully. So it's not about grinding nonstop, but about respecting when my mind needs to rest. The artist smiled, recalling times he pushed through exhaustion only to produce mediocre results. The second cycle was the essential phase of renewal. After intense work, your body and mind must recharge deeply to maintain elite performance over days, weeks, and years. This means quality sleep, nutrition, relaxation, and mindful practices. He emphasized that ignoring this cycle leads to burnout, injury, and declining productivity. True mastery is found in balancing these two cycles. Work hard with full presence, then renew fully without guilt. The billionaire described daily renewal rituals, breathing exercises, meditation, nature walks, restorative movement that support recovery. Elite performers build these rituals into their days and weeks. The entrepreneur realized she had long neglected these practices, mistaking busyness for progress. The artist felt relief hearing that rest was not a weakness, but a strategic necessity. The billionaire introduced the concept of ultradian rhythms, natural energy cycles in the body that last about 90 minutes each. Your energy waxes and wanes in these cycles. Learn to ride them, engaging in intense work during peaks and resting during troughs. He suggested structuring work with the 60-10 or 90-20 method, periods of focused effort followed by breaks to recharge. The artist asked, "How do I recognize when my energy is dipping?" The billionaire replied, "Listen to your body. Signs include waning focus, shallow breathing, tension, or restlessness. Honor those cues by stepping back and renewing." He also spoke of macrocycles, longer periods of growth and renewal that span weeks or months. Elite performers plan phases of intense effort followed by recovery, avoiding burnout and ensuring steady progress. The entrepreneur considered her burnout experiences and saw the wisdom in this longer view. The billionaire cautioned that society often glorifies constant hustle and undervalues rest. This mindset is a trap. Sustainable excellence demands harmony between effort and renewal. He shared stories of legendary performers who prioritized rest and recovery as much as training and work. To integrate these cycles, he advised building rituals around work and rest. Start your day with the 20-20-20 formula to energize and focus. Schedule deep work sessions aligned with your peak energy times. Build breaks and renewal moments consciously. Prioritize sleep as the foundation of recovery. The artist vowed to honor his body's signals instead of forcing creativity when depleted. The entrepreneur committed to redesigning her schedule to balance drive with rest. The billionaire concluded, "Mastering the twin cycles is mastering yourself. It is the secret to performing at your highest level, not just today or this week, but over a lifetime." As the sun climbed higher, they felt a deep shift in perspective. Excellence was no longer a sprint or a constant push. It was a rhythm, a dance between focused action and intentional renewal. The 5 a.m. Club had embraced a profound truth. True greatness is sustained not by relentless effort alone, but by harmonizing with life's natural cycles, allowing energy to build, flow, and replenish. With this wisdom, they stepped forward, ready to live, work, and create with balance, power, and lasting vitality. Chapter 17: The 5 a.m. Club members become heroes of their lives. The golden light of dawn filtered gently through the leaves of the ancient oak tree as the entrepreneur, the artist, and the barefoot billionaire convened once again in the garden. Their journey had taken them far from where they began. No longer strangers to the transformative power of the early morning, they were now deeply committed to the practices that had reshaped their lives. Today, the billionaire's voice held a rare gravity. "You have arrived at a profound truth," he said, "one that separates those who drift through life from those who become the heroes of their own stories." The entrepreneur lifted her gaze, feeling a stirring of clarity she had never before experienced. The artist nodded slowly, sensing a shift within himself. They had crossed a threshold. No longer passive spectators or victims of circumstance, they were becoming the authors and heroes of their own destinies. The billionaire began by explaining that every life is, at its core, a narrative, a story with chapters, conflicts, and growth. Most people live reactively, buffeted by external events and shaped by others' expectations. Heroes, however, see themselves as the central agents of their stories. They take ownership of their choices, their mindset, and their actions, refusing to be defined or limited by their past or present circumstances. This shift from victimhood to ownership, he said, is the foundation of becoming a hero. It means standing up and saying, "I am the captain of my soul, the master of my fate." He spoke of courage, not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. Heroes embrace discomfort and challenge because they know these are the crucibles of growth. They do not seek a life free from hardship, but a life rich with meaning and purpose. The entrepreneur reflected on the many moments she had avoided difficult conversations, shied away from risk, or settled for comfort instead of growth. She saw now that real transformation demanded stepping fully into the arena, exposed and vulnerable. She realized that the stories she told herself about what she could or couldn't do were often chains that held her back, and it was her responsibility to break free. The billionaire described how heroes build their power through daily rituals, small, consistent actions that accumulate over time to forge character and momentum. It is not grand gestures or luck, but the repeated disciplines that shape who you become. He pointed directly to their shared commitment to the 5 a.m. club routine as a heroic act in itself, a declaration of refusal to settle for distraction, complacency, or mediocrity. Every morning you rise early, move your body, reflect on your purpose, and commit to growth. You reaffirm your role as the hero of your life. The artist, who had long viewed his creative work as a form of self expression, now recognized it as a purposeful forging of meaning through discipline and intention. His art was not merely for beauty, but a beacon of his evolving story and impact. The billionaire then emphasized that heroes live with a clear vision and unshakable purpose. They know their why. This is their compass when the path grows difficult and the winds of doubt and distraction blow hard. Without a clear purpose, it is impossible to persist when the inevitable challenges arise. He encouraged each to define their personal mission and the legacy they wish to create. The entrepreneur shared her dream of building businesses that uplift and empower communities. The artist spoke of inspiring others through his art, of sparking change one brushstroke at a time. This clarity of purpose, he said, transforms daily struggles into meaningful challenges, fueling resilience even in the face of setbacks. He warned of the villains every hero must confront, not external foes, but internal enemies: doubt, distraction, fear, and complacency. These are the dragons to slay. They reside within, whispering lies that seek to derail your journey. The billionaire taught mental toughness strategies to overcome these foes: mindfulness to maintain presence, visualization to fuel belief, and cognitive reframing to see challenges as opportunities rather than obstacles. He explained that heroes develop an inner dialogue that encourages rather than sabotages. For example, when fear rises, a hero acknowledges it but does not allow it to paralyze. Instead, fear becomes a signal, a guidepost pointing toward growth. The hero's journey, he explained, is not linear but cyclical. There will be triumphs and setbacks, moments of clarity and times of confusion. The path is as important as the destination. Each struggle, each victory, each lesson is a chapter in your heroic saga. The entrepreneur found new acceptance for her struggles, understanding they were necessary parts of her growth, not failures. She realized that the challenges she once wished to avoid were the very fires that forged her strength. The artist came to see his creative blocks as phases of incubation, necessary pauses before breakthroughs. The billionaire shared stories from history, heroes who endured incredible hardship yet persevered. From inventors who faced countless failures before success to leaders who overcame personal loss but led nations through crisis. These stories reminded them that heroism isn't about perfection, but persistence and courage. Finally, the billionaire spoke of the highest calling of a hero: contribution. True heroes do not hoard their gifts. They serve others, sharing their growth, wisdom, and strength. Your rise becomes a beacon that empowers those around you to awaken and step into their own greatness. The artist smiled with deep understanding. His creativity was no longer a solitary pursuit, but a way to ignite change beyond himself. The entrepreneur felt the weight and joy of responsibility to use her success to create opportunities for others. As the morning sun warmed their faces, the 5 a.m. club members stood taller, steadier, and more resolved. They were no longer passive participants in life's unfolding. They were active heroes, writing lives of courage, purpose, and impact. They understood that the road ahead would test them, that setbacks and doubts would come, but they now possessed the tools, mindset, and rituals to face whatever challenges arose. Their hearts beat with steady confidence, their vision clear as they stepped forward, not just to exist, but to lead, to inspire, and to craft legacies worthy of their awakening. The journey to greatness was theirs to command, and with this recognition, the true transformation, the heroic metamorphosis, was complete. The billionaire closed by reminding them that heroism is a daily choice. Every morning is a new page, every action a word written in the story of their lives. They had embraced the power of rising early, cultivating discipline, and harnessing purpose. Now, they were ready to face the unknown, not as victims, but as heroes who create their own destiny. With renewed commitment, the 5 a.m. club members departed the garden, carrying with them a profound sense of agency and hope. Their journey was far from over, but their roles were clear. They were the heroes of their lives, and that was the greatest power of all.